Hello and welcome to Hughes of the World. Today's episode is going to be all about Austria. So this is country number 10 and episode number 10. Tangled up in wires here. Very professional. I've already got a few people on the chat there. We've got Chubai, we've got Thomas Page, we've got Andy McAvoy. Hello, Andy. I feel a bit embarrassed when I show like my backdrops and things to Andy because he's a digital artist, you see, and this all looks a bit amateur to me. It's like amateur hour, but it'll get better over time, I'm sure. The quality will improve, I hope. So I'm just going to, while you're on, sorry to do this to you, but I've got to bring up my chat window specifically for YouTube. I'm watching myself do this a few minutes ago. That's so weird. Right, and then I don't know where that's appeared. Where are you? Where are you? Pop out chat thing. Oh, there you are. It's behind my other chat window. Right, there we go. Okay, great. So we have Chubai. We've got Thomas Page, Andy McAvoy. We've got Jeremy Goch. We've got Dimitia Takev. We've got Paga Geo GT. Saying "Heyo from Austria." Oh, we got an Austrian in the house. Oh, I better be good then. I better be good. This should be a good one. This should be a good one. There's a lot to say about Austria. Let's get in there, shall we? So first of all, last week I explained that Australia meant the southern land. The southern Australis means southern. So you see something in the stars and you're like, Australis. Crux or Australis, whatever. Aurora Australis. It means southern. But in Austria's case, it doesn't. It means eastern. It comes from Osterich, which means it's like eastern realm. And that was the name that was given the easternmost part of Bavaria as early as the 11th century. So, 1066 and all that. Obviously, that was happening somewhere else, but over in Central Europe, all this stuff was going down. Obviously, it's famous. It's famous, Austria, for lots of things. Klimt, the artist, apple strudel, Wiener Schnitzel, Hitler, Mozart, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sigmund Freud, the Waltz, not the Waltz necessarily, but Christoph Waltz, who described the difference between Germany and Austria as a difference between the UK, he said England, and Ireland, which makes sense because they both speak the same language, but it's slightly different. And the size thing is about the same as well. Germany having a huge population, I think 79 million now in Germany, it's a huge population. Whereas the population of Austria is only 8.9 million. Actually, 8.8 million. It's about the size of Greater London. It's slightly smaller than Greater London in terms of population. And one in four Austrians live in Vienna. Why is that? Well, I'll come to that in the geography section. So let's just talk about the flag. Should we break down the flag? The Austrian flag, it's really simple. It's just red, white, red. That's it. So, the legend. Print the legend. This is one of the oldest flags in the world. It's up there with the Danish flag, which I think is the oldest flag in the world. Feel free to look that up on Wikipedia. It was first used, the first recorded use was in 1230. Not 1230 today, I mean the year 1230. And the legend is that Leopold V of Austria took his belt off and he had a white tunic on and he'd just been fighting in the siege of Acre and he took his belt off and basically he was covered in blood and he just had this white band where his belt had been. When in fact, actually, the war flag of the Holy Roman Empire was very similar. It was a silver cross with a red surround. So, it's quite similar to the later Austrian arms. But I prefer the legend. The legend's kind of cool. Why does your flag look like that? Well, I was covered in blood and I took my belt off and ta-da, flag! What a way to make a flag, eh? Should we go into the geography? I'm going to say hello to some of my viewers here. We've got Jim Bob. We've got Vincent. How you doing? We've got Attila is on here. Can't wait for the section on Julie Andrews. The hills are alive with the sound of singing. We've got Pekal and the Tory saying, hello, Graham. Austria is definitely one of my favourite places in the world, but if German isn't the language of love, then then Austrian dialect is even worse. It's a bit harsh. But German, compared with French or Spanish or Irish, English, it doesn't have that sort of melodic value to it. But then again, I'd say the same thing about, would you say some English accents were the accents of love? I wouldn't say the Scouse accent was the accent of love. I certainly wouldn't say the Brummie accent was, or the Geordie accent. And that posh Risi pronunciation, that is not the language of love, because it's just like, I'm just too above everything, and it's not, I don't know, snooty, comes across as snooty, doesn't cross as suave and sophisticated. And Italian, that's a language of love, I would say, and they're called romantic languages, whereas German is a Germanic language, so romantic. Maybe that's why we hear it the way we do. I don't know. Good afternoon, Graham, says Brenner. Hello. Gus Gott says, Umka. Hi, Gus Gott to you too. Pekla and Tory, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade are the perfect comparison of Austria and Germany. Yes, it was the way she kisses him and punches him or something. This is how we say goodbye in Austria, and she gives him a kiss. And then the guy says, this is how we say goodbye in Germany, and punches him. Great line in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where they ask Indiana Jones' dad, Sean Connery, James Bond, what's in the diary? What does it tell you that it doesn't tell us? And he says, it tells me that goose-stepping morons like yourself should try reading books instead of burning them. Great line. Great film. I saw that at the cinema. God, that's how old I am. Wow, I'm so old. I was alive for half the history I'm going to go through tonight. Where's the big man? Is he literally coming back from Austria now? What? Which big man? What? I'm a bit confused now. Do you mean Arnold Schwarzenegger? Perkele Natori says, I would also say my language of Finnish is definitely one of the language of love. Not the language of love, sorry. Finnish is unique though, isn't it? In European languages, it's got a whole branch all of its own. It's kind of like trying to think of an animal that just has a branch. It's like the marsupials of the Animalia kingdom. Adrian Wilson says, Austria was majority Catholic, German majority Protestant. Therefore, further comparable to Ireland in some ways. Perhaps, probably wouldn't push the parallel too far, though. Well, I'm going to come to that at the end when I'm talking about what Austria's like today. Adrian Wilson said, Austria... Oh, I've just read that, Adrian. Read it twice. I don't like Austria because it is in the EU, says Brian Muller. Okay, well, that's good, because most of the countries of Europe are in the EU, the majority of them, and the majority of those countries... In fact, 21 of them are in NATO. So they've signed a bit of paper to say that if we get invaded by a hostile foreign power, say, I don't know, China or Russia, they will send young men and women to fight and die for our country. So I do like them. But, little addendum here, Austria is not part of NATO for reasons we will come to, but it is part of the EU. Anyway, we're not talking about Brexit tonight. We're talking about Austria. And so furthermore, I will take you over, I think, to the map. Should we go over to the mappy map? It's the map of the world. There's the world there. And if I zoom in, you'll see little Austria there, just under, squished between Germany and Czechia and Slovakia and Hungary and Croatia and Italy and Switzerland, and don't forget little Liechtenstein. I think it's surrounded by 8 countries, so that's pretty cool. Now, if you look at the topography of Austria, you will find that a remarkable 62% of Austria is covered in mountains. This is all mountainous here. This is all the Alps, the Austrian Alps. So there's only less than Only less than 40% of the country is land that you can probably live on, and only 20% of the country is actually arable. That's a bit of a funny shape, Austria. It reminds me a little bit of Afghanistan. See this little narrow bit here that I'm pointing to with my pointer, which I wish it was a better pointer than this. I need to sort out how to make it a better pointer. It seems a bit weird. Well, that's because this area here, this part of Italy, used to be part of Austria, and they lost it in 1919. So this became part of Italy in 1919 after the First World War, after Austria lost the First World War. And that's called the South Tyrol, down here. And basically everyone who lives there speaks German. They're all Austrian people, and yet they live in Italy. So there you go. Fun. So that's the geography. It's a landlocked country. However, it is on the Danube River. So that's a huge navigational thoroughfare from all the way through from France to the Black Sea at the moment. So that's pretty cool. But Austria has always been in the middle of things. Let's put it that way. So let's talk a little bit. Let's do a deep dive. Should we do a deep dive into the history unless there's some important chat? Has anyone left a super chat? No one, no super chats. So I'm going to head straight into the history of the place. I've lost me actual chat. There you go. Right, good. I can see you on my laptop. Right, so where was I? History. So 30,000 years ago, it's bloody cold. It was still at the height of the Ice Age, which hasn't finished yet because an Ice Age is only over once there's no snow at the poles, apparently. But there is still snow at the poles, thank God, at the moment. Not for much longer, I don't think. If certain places have certain governments of the world have their way. But at the moment, we're still in an Ice Age. But it's generally regarded that this last Ice Age ended about 10,000 years ago, which began the era of human agriculture, which is the beginning of human civilization. So about 8,000 BC. But we have these little Venus statues, one from 30,000 BC, and another one from 25,000 BC. Not BC, just 30,000 years ago. So take 2,000 off that. 28,000 BC. So in 28,000 BC, someone did a little statue, a little Venus statuette, and that was found in the Danube Valley. There was the Venus of Galgenberg, also known as Dancing Fanny. I love that she was called Dancing Fanny. What a great name. And and then there was the Venus of Willendorf, which they reckon came 5,000 years later. That's a hell of a wait, isn't it? Like you order two statues and just one comes, and then you have to wait 5,000 years for the next one. The Celts settled in the late Iron Age, around 450 BC. And they met the Illyrics from the Balkan region. What's now the Balkans? So all of those countries, in the former Yugoslavia. And they formed an Illyric Celtic kingdom known as Noricum, apparently. And the Romans turned up in about 15 BC. They settled south of the Danube. They founded a place called Vindobona, great name, which eventually became Vienna. So that was a long, long time ago. The Roman Western Empire collapsed in the 5th century AD. And by the 7th century AD, what's now Austria. What am I talking about tonight? What's now Austria was incorporated into Bavaria. So it became part of Bavaria. And then that got swallowed up by the Carolingian Empire of Charlemagne. He lived from 747, as in the plane, AD to 814. And his kingdom stretched all the way from France all the way across Central Europe. And the Danube Valley, which is what Austria is now in, well, the bits that aren't in the mountains, became the Ostmark, or the Eastern March. And in around 800 AD, it became the part of the Holy Roman Empire, which sounds like something that Robin would say in Batman in the 1960s. He'll go, "Holy Roman Empire, Batman!" when confronted with some centurions who were trying to take Batman out. That would have been a great joke. I don't know if they ever made it. The Holy Roman Empire was this it was an empire. It was a bit of an insane one, and it was at the time it was run by the Pope, decided by the Pope, kind of with the blessing of the Pope, and they had these kings that were elected. They had these electors who elected the kings. It was a weird time. You met me at a very strange time in my life, said the people who lived then. In 1156, though, the Eastern March became a duchy, as in past the duchy on the eastern side, and that became a duchy with Vienna as its capital, or Vienne as it's known in actual Austria. It's W-I-E-N, so Vienne. In 1246, the guy who ran the duchy, well, his noble family, died out. The guy who was in charge, he died without issue. Oh, wow, I've got €2 super chat from Umka. Thank you, Umka. Yay! Have a pint, mate. Yeah, thank you. I will have some fine Austrian lager or wine. They make good wine. Anyway, so moving swiftly on. So the guy who was in charge, he died without issue in 1246. Bit of instability for a bit, and then the Habsburgs took over. So these were a noble family. They came from a castle. I come from a castle, don't you? Near Basel in present-day Switzerland, right? And they took over, and in 1278 became rulers of the Holy Roman Empire, which they held on to. They held on to it until pretty much they were still in charge of Austria from that point until 1919, if you can believe that. So, 1278 to 1919, the Habsburg dynasty, which was insane. 500 years they ruled over Austria without any... I mean, there were things happened. And you've got to understand that the Holy Roman Empire encompassed all of present-day Austria, also Slovenia, Czechia, Germany, Holland, Belgium, and much of Italy. In 1482, Burgundy, Lorraine, and the Low Countries in the Netherlands fell into Habsburg hands through marriage, which pissed off the French, no end. And then to add insult to injury, in I love this, in 1496, Philip the Handsome married Spain's Joanna the Mad. It's true. This is what happened. And then Spain, Central and South America, also became part of the Habsburg dynasty. And then, if that wasn't enough, under King Charles V, King Carl V, who lived from 1500 to 58, he added the Kingdom of Naples, which is basically all of southern Italy, with Vienna at the heart of this huge empire which stretched across continents. I mean, it was an empire that stretched. The sun never set, I guess. I don't know. No, maybe it did. But it was of the known world back then. It was a massive chunk of it. So anyway, in 1529, there was the first siege of Vienna, because there was two. There's one that you've heard of, and then there was one that you haven't heard of. But the first one's quite fun. It was under a guy called Suleiman the Magnificent. Which is just a great name. You know, if you're going to be called Suleiman, which is a great name to start with, you want the Magnificent to back it up. That's pretty cool. Charlie Nelson's on the chat, and he's just dropped in £5 on the super chats. Thanks, Charlie Nelson. Woo! That's awesome, isn't it? I love your records, mate. And then where am I? I'm still talking about the siege, aren't I? So there was a siege, and that was in 1529. And then over 100 years later, there was the big siege. The big siege of Vienna. There were 25,000 tents surrounding the Vienna at the time, surrounding the city. This was an attack by the Turks, by the Ottoman Empire, basically. The guy in charge of the attack had, get this, 1,500 concubines guarded by 700 black eunuchs. And they were thwarted by the winter. It wasn't the Austrians who got rid of them. It was all the what do you call people from Vienna? Viennians who saw them off. It was the winter. It was the cold what done it. Did them in, so they got beaten. And then 1740 to 48 was the Austrian War of Succession between Prussia and Austria-Hungary. Again, it one of those things where you have this huge dynasty that spreads over the whole of a continent. You're going to have some fallings out, aren't you? And then the Holy Roman Empire finally collapsed. But the Habsburgs clung on. Okay, the Habsburgs were still there till 1919. But the Holy Roman Empire collapsed around the turn of the 19th century when Napoleon came along. Let's finish off my drink there and get rid of that. So, I've got another super chat. Another one from Unker. €5. Yay. Get a bottle of Austrian village called F King. They have a light in German hell beer called Effing Hell. No kidding. Excellent. There is a town, only about 300 people live there, but there is a town in Austria called Effing. Not Effing, but the actual word. People keep stealing their road sign. They actually applied to change the name a few years ago because they were getting so frustrated with people stealing the road sign. But their request was turned down, which I thought was a bit rude. But there you go. So yeah, where was I? I was talking about the Holy Roman Empire collapsed when Napoleon came along. And the Habsburgs survived, and they ruled over this thing called the Deutsche Bund, which was like the German alliance. Realistic, it was like hundreds of small states. They were like little tiny places, like basically all these cities that all were just bound together by language more than anything else. But in 1848, Austrians demanded their own parliament, and they got one. And it was still could be vetoed by the Habsburg monarch, of course, but it was the end of feudalism. In 1867, they started up a dual monarchy with Hungary, which has got parallels with England and Scotland. Do you see the parallels here? Oh no, because that would be Germany, wouldn't it? Okay, shut up, Graham. At the time, the Austro-Hungarian Empire covered Austria-Hungary, Czechia, Slovakia, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, plus chunks of Serbia, Italy, Romania, Poland, and Ukraine. Wow. World War II brought this to an end, though. The borders reduced to pretty much today's borders. They lost Tyrol to Italy in 1919, like I said. And when Karl I stepped down in 1919 after the end of World War I, it ended 640 years of Habsburg rule. Although the Habsburgs are still around today. They're just not in charge of anything anymore. Things fell apart in the late 20s. By the way, in World War I, Austria was on the losing side. So it was Austria-Hungary and Germany and the Ottoman Empire versus Britain and Russia and France. So that was the war. And then Russia obviously conked out in 1917 after the Russian Revolution, the second one of the year. There were two in 1917. Everyone seems to forget about the first one. That was when the Democrats got in, like not the American Democrats, but actually democracy people who wanted democracy, and then they were overthrown by the communists, not the monarchy. Keep up at the back. I think that like when World War One broke out, basically all the people fighting it were all grandchildren of Queen Victoria. Just spread out all across the continent. That didn't work out very well, did it? 10 million people died. Yay! Anyway, so things fell apart for Austria. Obviously, at the same sort of time that it did for Germany when they had the hyperinflation as a result of the Treaty of Versailles and the fledgling Weimar Republic. And it led to civil war in 1934. Didn't last very long. But it culminated in the defeat of the Social Democrats. And in March 1938, Germany invaded, led by Adolf Hitler, who was originally from Austria. And they were met with cheers and flowers in Vienna. Sigmund Freud fled to England. Others were not so fortunate. There was a rigged referendum, the tool of the tyrants. That led to the country being annexed into Greater Germany, and Hitler basically running the place. And interestingly, Austria never had a government in exile like a lot of the countries that were overrun by the Nazis. They never had the government in exile. They were a bit more welcoming, which I'll come back to. Anyway, so you need to know that at the time there was 180,000 Jews living in Austria. 100,000 of them managed to escape. 65,000 were not so fortunate and perished in the concentration camps or were killed outright by the Nazis where they lived. This ended a Jewish history in Austria that dated back to the Middle Ages, and the Jewish population's never really recovered. The latest data I can get is that there are only 7,000 religious Jews left in Austria. 180,000 to 7,000. And I don't think that's ever going to recover. And the first mention of someone being Jewish specifically was in 1194. And that was the first mention of Jews in Vienna. There was a minter called Schlom who was subsequently murdered along with 16 others by a bunch of rampaging crusaders who came through the city, or the town, I guess, at the time. There was a large synagogue. There was a great synagogue that stood in Vienna in the 13th century, in what's now Judenplatz. And Jews at the time could only work in some professions. I'm just going to break from this for a moment because Alex Morgan has said he's dropped in a super chat for a $5 saying, another good Hughes of the world. Can't wait to go traveling again. Thanks, Alex. That's really generous. I haven't got to the end yet. It might go off a cliff towards the end, but we're doing all right at the moment. You know, we're trucking along. Bloody hell, it's 1/2 already. Oh my God. It takes so long to get through the history. Here's the history of the world in half an hour. Anyway, so going back to sort of the Jewish experience in Austria, at the time, Jews could only work in certain professions, and there were these two libels, and you might have heard of them. There was the blood libel, which claimed that Jews were using Christian blood for their ceremonies and to put into their bread to bake. There was the host desecration libel, which said that the Jews were putting pins in the host, the communion wafer. I just honestly, and this all culminated in one of the worst pogroms until obviously World War II in 1420, when many Jews were murdered. And many committed collective suicide, and the synagogue was destroyed. And some of the stones from the old synagogue was actually used to build the university in Vienna. Jews were officially banned from settling in Vienna until 1624. So that's a good 204 years where they were officially persona non grata. Leopold the First drove them out of their quarter and renamed it like Leopoldplatz or something after himself. And it wasn't until Joseph II of Austria from 1741 to 1790 that they got any kind of rights. Joseph II is one of my favorite rulers of all time. He was an Enlightenment ruler. He was the king who brought in a lot of change into what was then, I guess, that's still the Holy Roman Empire. But he was very progressive. And he's also the guy who apparently said to Mozart that his symphony or his concerto or whatever is all very good, but it just had too many notes. It had too many notes. You gotta love that. Anyway, under Joseph II, they got Jewish people got rights for the first time. But the biggest change for Jewish people was in the revolution of 1848. There was a kind of democratic revolution where people demanded a parliament. And at that time, Vienna's Jews were at the forefront of the uprising. They wanted, and they got out of it, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and schooling as well, which they had been sort of not been allowed for a very long time. But by 1938, anti-Jewish sentiment had reached fever pitch, and this is such a shame because after everything the Jews had had given towards Austria's politics and culture, so many so-called Christian Austrians turned the other way when they saw what the Nazis were planning. And Austria itself supplied a disproportionate number of officers to the SS and the German army. and there was active and passive support for Nazism. And as I said, there was no government in exile for Austria. Although in Tyrol there was a resistance movement, so the resistance was in Tyrol, which had obviously gone over to Italy at that time. And okay, let's say a few things that Austria did that weren't too bad. There was a guy called Robert Bernardus who was involved in an assassination attempt on Hitler in July 1944. He was executed for his part in it. And there was a resistance group called O5. I think they were called O5. Someone can look that up for me. They worked to liberate Vienna, but they were betrayed at the very last moment, and several members were hung from street lamps. Hanged from street lamps. And the Soviet troops were the ones apparently to liberate Vienna, but O5 had done a lot of the groundwork. I just jump into the welcoming. They were full on with it. Yeah, I know. Size, it's literally thin and tasty. I like it. When Werner Schnitzel in Vienna is better than here in Bonn. That's a Munker. Freud Sigmund 72 says, not entirely. Voting was not anonymous, and there were paramilitary checking what you voted for, willing to beat you up if you voted no. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a free and fair referendum. Those things seem quite rare. I don't know. Umka says, in USSR, when people could not travel freely, everyone loved to watch Soviet TV show about traveling made by one Soviet guy, Senkevich. Cool. You are now like that guy. We are locked, cannot travel, and we watch your travel blog on YouTube. Well, I've got like literally hundreds and hundreds of videos of travel around the world. And honestly, if I could just pause time, if I could just press pause on a big remote and everything would stop, I would sit here for 6 months and edit the shit out of this stuff and get it online. So I go, look, this is the world. It's waiting. It's waiting. We'll be able to go back. One day. So which note should be left out? Well, that's always the big question, isn't it? Freud Sigmund says a very specific form of art called Werner Werkstatt is obviously from Vienna, although one of the best collections is an exhibit in the New Gallery in New York. Peter says, I remember as a child, it was forbidden to watch American Westerns. I remember when I was on one of the ships, cargo ship, I was coming across the Atlantic Ocean, and the master of the vessel, the captain, was from Poland, and he was telling me that when he was a kid in the 1960s, him and his dad had a long-wave radio in the attic, and they would listen to the Beatles on the long-wave radio, and that was like a little bit of rebellion that they could have. But yeah, I mean, you look back in history, and everything was a bit shit. I don't know why people go on about it like it was a great time, because it really wasn't for the vast majority of people. Were you rich? Were you powerful? Well, are you rich? Are you powerful now? No, well, you probably wouldn't have been then either. So, anyway, so at the end of the war, the Soviet Union, the UK, the US, and France divided the capital, divided Vienna into four quarters, which is known as 4 men in a jeep. It's like 3 blokes in a pub, 4 men in a jeep. And in 1945, also, Austria finally became a proper republic. It tried this once before, not really succeeded. Finally became a proper republic. In 1948, Graham Greene visited, and he ended up writing The Third Man, which is a fantastic book and film, with Orson Welles playing Harry Lime. 1955, the USSR said, listen, we will end our occupation of your country if you agree to remain neutral. So Austria went, okay then. So the USSR withdrew from Austria, and that is why Austria is one of only 6 countries in the EU that's not part of NATO. It's because they're upholding the deal that they signed in 1955 with the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist anymore, to say that they would be a neutral country in the Cold War. However, unlike Switzerland, that they weren't quite like Switzerland, they actually did bother to join the UN. Switzerland only joined the UN in about 2002, and they were kind of pressured into it. But Austria's kind of position as a neutral place between these two superpowers fighting it out led to the UN establishing its European base in Vienna back in the day. So I don't know. Let's get back up. Let's get up to modern times, because I'm coming up to 22 now. 1986. The silence of what happened during the war, the Nazi era, was shattered when presidential candidate and subsequent President Kurt Waldhelm was there were allegations of Nazi war crimes that he had committed. And although he was acquitted, well, they didn't find any evidence. He was always a bit, his answers didn't give a lot of people much support. They thought he probably actually, seemed likely. It seemed likely. In 1995, Austria joined the European Union. Yes, but not NATO, because of the 1955 deal it had done with Moscow. I'll say Moscow. That covers the whole fact that by then the USSR had collapsed. In 1999, it joined the euro, which became the currency in 2002, replacing the mark, I think. The Austrian shilling, was it? Was it the Austrian shilling? I don't know. Someone look it up, quick. Here's a little tidbit for you. When Arnold Schwarzenegger allowed an execution to go ahead in 2005 in California, when he was governor of California, some Austrians wanted to revoke his Austrian citizenship on the grounds that Austria first abolished capital punishment in, get this, 1787. And you'll never guess who did it. It was Joseph II, my favourite monarch. I think he's probably my favourite monarch. He's got to be. All the rest are a bit wanky. People are talking about Ipswich. What's Ipswich got to do with it? Tonight, no one wants to watch Graham Hughes. Western episodes only, elite. What? No one wants to watch me? Oh, come on. I've got a few people here. Got Duke Vengeance. Sorry I'm late. I was busy predicting the future. That's what you want to do, Duke Vengeance. If you ever meet someone who can predict the future, one of these people who can see what's going to happen. Clairvoyant. Is it clairvoyant? You know what's going to happen. You just punch him. And then you go, oh, how come you didn't see it coming? And then you win. Anyway, don't do that. I'm not advocating violence. Anyway, since 2006, there's been a problem in Austria, getting back to Austria, with the rise of the far right. That's bare no bones about it. The likes of Jörg Haider getting into positions of power. And in spring of 2017, the Austrian People's Party, the OVP, with its new young leader, Sebastian Kurz, Kurz, Kurz. He won, and the People's Party are very far right, but not quite as far right as the Austrian Freedom Party, which was set up by actual Nazis. Actual freaking Nazis set up a political party. And this is where Austria hasn't had the same kind of self-reckoning as Germany has, and possibly because Austria wasn't split the same way Germany was. This led to reunification. Austria has not gone the same way to atone for the sins, if you want to call it, of the past, as Germany has. It hasn't quite accepted that. And propped up by the influx of refugees coming from places like Syria, civil wars that the West caused by stirring the bloody pot in the Middle East. So we caused these wars, and then refugees come over from these places. And whereas Germany took 1 million refugees, people in Austria were very, very reticent to take refugees, people fleeing for their lives. And only last year, 2 years ago now. Oh my God, it's 2021. In September 2019, the elections led to another landslide victory. I say landslide victory. They've got a coalition system. They've got a proportional representation system. So they got 37.5% or something of the vote. But the People's Party formed a coalition with the reinvigorated Greens. So basically, you got the people on the right, the far right, joining up with the Greens, which seems like a weird match, but there you go. Kurz was sworn in as Chancellor again in 2020. By the way, when he became Chancellor, he was only 31 years old. He was the youngest leader of any major country in the world. True story. But, unlike most millennials, bit on the right, bit gammony, bit Brexity, probably. Watch whatever the state wanted us to watch and do whatever the state wanted us to do. The glory days. Love the zither in The Third Man. Anton Caracas was amazing, genius. Talking about the music there. The music for The Third Man is really, really good. And shilling, it was a shilling, yeah, the Austrian shilling. I was right. German mark, Austrian shilling. Austria was kind of compelled to be a neutral country in the Cold War, a price for becoming a unified country in 1955, previously divided as per Germany, says Adrian Wilson. Yeah. Shilling and Rappen. Rappen was the name of their pfennigs, or their pennies were called Rappen. I like that. Screw Ipswich on the ball city, says Thomas Page. Random football stuff going on. Talking about adventures. When I was a kid, I really liked the books of Alfred Sklarski about Tomek and his adventures, says Umka. Brilliant. Graham Hughes, Austrian from Bergenland, checking in. Hello, how you doing? Umka, you know too much. That's never an insult, though, is it? Austria just offloaded this part in the Nazi history by shifting all responsibility onto Germany. But wasn't that to say like the greatest trick that Austria pulled was making everyone think that what was it? Oh no, it was the greatest trick that Germany ever pulled was making everyone think that Mozart was German and that Hitler was Austrian. No, it doesn't work. It must have been Austria. In fairness, reckoning took decades in West Germany too. Didn't happen for a long time. Yeah. You can be a racist bigot and take recycling very seriously. Yeah, I suppose so, Ben Lasseler. That's a good point. Oh, are we buffering again? Oh, sorry. Looks like the BT engineer wasn't successful. No, my BT box went down. It actually went down today for many hours. Says I'm connected. Damn you, BT. That music sends a zither down my spine. See what you've done there, Patrick McCarthy. I like that. Groschen was a small coins. Rappen is Swiss, I think. Oh, sorry, Michael. With the facts. We traded Beethoven for Hitler. Okay, is that it? Right. I knew it was something like that. My fault with Rappen. They were Groschen, those pesky mountain units. Andy McAvoy said, yeah, I was like 20 minutes behind. I hate it when that happens. Your comments make no sense to the chat until you realise, whoopsies. Yeah, that sometimes happens when the chat just sort of sticks. Anyway, so what can I say? Austria, very high standard of living. Very high standard of living. Big into skiing, obviously, and beer, wine, coffee, going out for walks is big over there. Not big polluters, actually, the Austrians. On average, the amount of CO2 that an Austrian produces is half the amount of CO2 that your average American produces. Unfortunately, there's only less than 9 million Austrians, and there are 329 million Americans. Shit. So yeah, when you think of German dress, when you think of Lederhosen kind of thing, that's more Bavarian, which is kind of close to Austrian. So it's kind of more Bavarian Austrian kind of dress, you know? It's not, yeah. Also sports, let's talk about sports. Footy, big thing in Austria, and also motor racing. It's huge, and skiing. The oldest zoo in the world, which dates from 1752, is in Austria, is in Vienna. And it was set up by Joseph II. This guy just keeps coming back, doesn't he? He just doesn't know when to go away. And Mozart was born in Salzburg, obviously. He died at the age of 35. Penniless. Hashtag just saying. Anyway, how are we doing for Super Chats tonight? The first postcards came from, I don't know why this is so random, but the first postcards apparently came from Austria, which is, postcards are great. Come on, who doesn't like a postcard? I didn't like postcards when I was living in Panama. Obviously we didn't have a postal service, so we had the mailboxes, etc., on the island of Isla Colón. And I'd have to get a boat to town, and I got a message on my phone or something saying there's a package for me, or a parcel, or a letter, or a postcard, and the minimum fee was like $3 or something to pick up anything. So people sent me postcards, which was really lovely, and I did like getting postcards. It cost me more than the postcard and the cost to send it to mailboxes, etc., for me to pick it up. So it was kind of like, yeah, not big into postcards at the moment. Can you refrain from sending me postcards, or even better, just send them to my address in Liverpool, which is what my friend Gavin Mack used to do. Well, he still does. I'm sure he'll start again quite soon. Whenever he went to somewhere that I haven't been in the world, he would send me a postcard from that place with "Hello Graham, I am in Mayotte," or "I am in Greenland," or "I'm just somewhere I hadn't been," just to rub it in. You haven't been everywhere, which is epic trolling. I mean, come on, compare with just leaving a nasty message on Facebook. That's off the charts. It's actually going to the other side of the world, going to these remote, isolated islands, just so you can send a postcard to someone to say, I've been here and you haven't. Love it. Back into the messages for a little bit. We've got. Looks like the engineer wasn't successful. Yeah, sorry about that. It's been buffering badly. Hang on. Let me see if I can do something about the buffering. Let's just put that on there, and then it should be connected on that one, and then let's do a little test here. Sorry, everybody. Just bear with me while I pull my hair out my head. I'm getting 69 dudes. Getting 69 on the old the old download speed, which I don't really care about. And I'm getting 15 megabits for the upload speed, which should be double what I need. I only need 7. God damn it. Well, there you go. Okay, well, that was fascinating stuff. Hopefully it'll work now till the end. Buffering, right. Because Austria does not produce much industrial stuff, at least not so much as Germans. Bayern and Austria share the same dialect. So it's not just Germany that speaks German. Obviously, you've got Austria that speaks German, but they're not German. Don't call them German. And also, there's parts of Switzerland that speak German as well. And then you've got people who speak Italian, you've got people who speak French, and you've got people who speak Romanish, which is the old language of Switzerland. My favourite fact about Switzerland, and I may as well tell you this now, because if I manage to do one of these once a week, I'm not going to get to Switzerland for like another 2 or 3 years. Helvetica, the font from Switzerland. That's the old Roman name of the country, was Helvetia. That's where it comes from. Anyway, but I'm not talking about Switzerland. I'm talking about Austria, little baby Austria, nestled as it is in the heart of Europe. Vienna was really lucky not to be destroyed during World War II. Imperial city survived. That's true, yeah. I mean, Vienna is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. They've got some modern eyesores, like almost modern cities, but I'm not going to go off on that one again. Yeah, you've got the, what's it called, the Hofburg, the palace, the old Austria's imperial palace, and they've got the Spanish riding school there as well. That's in Vienna. It's always a good pub quiz question. Where is the Spanish riding school? It's in Vienna, and they do performances in the Hofburg. So if you go to the palace, you might see a performance of horses, because they do the dance and stuff, I think. Also, just a few do's and don'ts when you're in Austria. First of all, shake hands when you meet someone, and also shake hands when you say goodbye, which is just politeness, really. And can you do me a favour, though? When you shake someone's hand, don't squeeze the hand really tight as if you're playing some kind of masculine game with them. It's just pathetic. Just shake it. Also, no dead fish. Okay, can you just somewhere in between? Don't like me hand crushed. Don't want to feel like I'm shaking hands with dead fish. Just happy medium, please, for those handshakers out there. Not that you can shake people's hands at the moment because of COVID, so you just have to sort of stand 2 meters away from each other and do this. Dress up for the opera or theatre, or if you go into a nice restaurant, do like dressing up. Jaywalking. I should have covered this in Australia last week, but I already went way over time. It was like an extra half an hour on that show last week on Australia. One of the things that drove me nuts in Australia was the fact that jaywalking is a law there, and it is in other countries around the world. It's a law in America, it's a law in Singapore, and you're standing there at the side of the freaking road, and there is nothing. There are no cars for miles, like literally to the horizon. There is not a single vehicle in sight. It's the middle of the night. There's no one else there but you're not allowed to cross the road until the little green man appears. Or you will get a fine if anyone sees you for jaywalking. And I don't think jaywalking should be a law, because I think that unless you, I don't know, start dancing on a motorway, which obviously is restricted to just cars, right? But if you're in a city, humans should have right of way, okay? It goes like this. Humans first, then cyclists, then cars. If a car hits a human, even if the human is cartwheeling in the middle of the road, doesn't matter. I think it should always be the motorist's fault. Tough luck. And you know what? If you see someone standing at the side of the road and they look like they're going to jump on your bonnet for the insurance claim or something, I don't think it works like that. But yeah, if they look like they're going to do it, bloody slow down. Like, stop. Just keep your eyes open. That's the way I feel. Because if you have a jaywalking law, it makes people feel like that pedestrians shouldn't have been in the road. You know what people are like when they're driving? They're wankers. Everyone. I'm a wanker when I drive. Everyone's a wanker when they drive. Put a decent, lovely, loving human being behind the wheel of a car and they turn into a massive wanker. You know, Jeremy Clarkson used to be all right before he drove a car. He was 17 years old, drove his first car, turned into a massive wanker. He was all right before then. I'll tell you why everyone who drives is a massive wanker. It's because they genuinely believe while they're driving that anyone driving slower than them is a dickhead and anyone driving faster than them is a maniac. They are the only people, or I am the only person, or you are the only person driving at any time, any given time on any given road that's actually doing it right. Everyone else is doing it wrong. So anyway, that's why I don't think jaywalking should be a law. I think you should be able to walk all over the roads, because one of my favourite bits, there's lots of favourite bits in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but one of my favourite little takeaways from it is that when Ford Prefect first arrives on Earth, he looks at the state of the place and he decides that cars are the dominant life form because we have designed our cities and towns around the needs of freaking cars, not humans. Not little squishy humans, got to walk about. Cars. Don't forget, this was written in the 1970s, so very much the way that the city centres of Liverpool, of Birmingham, of Manchester, of Leeds, and of London had just been ripped apart by these horrible flyovers and motorways going into the inner city. The Mancunian way, Jesus. Anyway, the point is, cities, roads in a city should be designed around the needs of human beings. And that's why I'm into pedestrianised spaces and also massive laws to stop cars driving where humans should be. Take public transport. Anyway, Graham must love the Netherlands. No, because you know I just said, right, the hierarchy is pedestrians, then it's cyclists, then it's cars, right? In the Netherlands, the cyclists think that they have right of way against the cars. Good. Yes, you should. But they also think they have right of way over humans as well, over pedestrians. And so you're walking along, you're trying to look at your phone, trying to find out where you are, you're trying to eat something, and then ring every 5 seconds. Ring. What? And it's like, how dare you slow me down for a second? I'm traveling on this slow means of getting around the place. You've slowed me down from the 10 miles an hour I was doing to 7 miles an hour because I had to go around you. How dare! And that cyclist goes home and cries himself to death because every cyclist is the best cyclist in the world and everyone else is a maniac, probably. Don't get me started on pedestrians. Anyway, where was I? Build proper roads in the UK and give people freedom of choice. Build proper roads in the UK. What? Crazy idea. Come on. The British motorway system's brilliant. There's a website called Pathetic Motorways, and if you're sad and into sort of urban construction, like I am, yes, I am into everything. There's this website, and it just goes on about how terrible the motorways are in the UK, and it just explains. It's kind of like a little bit of a love-hate relationship. It just explains that no motorway in the United Kingdom was ever finished. It's why the M62 starts at Junction 4. It's why the M1 just stops when it hits the North Circular, just stops dead. That's because it never finished. None of it was ever finished. It was all supposed to be this and that, and it's supposed to be connected together, and it just never was. Switch Island in Liverpool, never finished. Anyway, so only one defendant served time because the Nuremberg principles were not accepted. Shit. So you're talking about Austria, which is what I was supposed to be doing. Sorry, I went off on one there about jaywalking, but that is a thing over there. Oh, something else, right? So while I'm here, I will bring up this matter. Oh, I've just. Do you know why it was probably buffering? I've just realised that in the back window of my stupid internet thing, it was actually running both Restream and YouTube. So I had two streams coming in of me, just a bit timeout. Anyway, what I wanted to show you is fans of the sound of music. Check this out. We're going to have a look at the map again. Here we go. And there's Austria there. Now, at the end of the sound of music, they cross the border at Salzburg. Can you see Salzburg there in the middle of the screen? Salzburg, yeah? Can you see that? Yeah? Salzburg, yeah? Okay, right, so they cross the border into here, yeah, to get away from the Nazis. Okay, they cross the border. Can I just zoom out the map and just show you how stupid that is? Because, oh, look at what country it is here. It says quite clearly Germany. There's Salzburg. If you cross over the border at Salzburg, you end up in Germany. You idiot filmmakers. Why didn't one of you invest in a map? Just saying. Hashtag just saying. So, there we go. Right, I think I'm done. Oh my God, I'm up to the hour already. Thank you so much for joining me in my little chat today. Let's see what else we've got here. We've got Umka saying, I see you're not from Germany. Don't try your logic on the Autobahn. Well, no, I said that motorways are different because the pedestrians are banned from there. But that's something else. Come on, before cities were for horses and business and trade and everything else, but not for people. But cities with horses. Well, actually, yeah, London was more dangerous 120 years ago when there were no cars because of all the horses. It was a lot more dangerous because horses just ran and trampled people to death. Also, the average speed of the traffic was higher back then because you could get around easier because there were less cars on the road. I've lost my chat again. Keep losing my chat. I hope no one's contacting me off Facebook because they're going to be sorely disappointed by my response. Right, there we go. That's better. So yeah. Oh God, I'm all back now. Andy McAvoy, I've got a £10 super chat from Andy McAvoy. Buy yourself some schnitzel and Edelweiss beer. Thank you, Andy. You are a legend. I love you. Really appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Umka says, I came to Germany from the country Russia without proper road system and ability to just drive anywhere. So I love German and EU in general roads and just the ability to go. Yeah, that is good. Umka, that is good. But I want the roads that allow you to go places. I would rather that once you got to the place, that was the end of the road. You park your car and you walk, or you take public transport into the city centre. That's just me. Good night, Vienna, says Chubai. Cheers from Bergenland or Krautich West Ungarn. I don't know what that means. Is this where whenever I was travelling, I'd always get people to like teach me a little bit of the language, and invariably they taught me swear words, and I didn't find out till I went somewhere else and say, "Hey, was this person telling me swear words?" And they're like, "Yeah, they were totally telling you swear words." Animals were generally a lot more common in public in 1900, as was their feces, says Adrian Wilson. Good for your roses, not good for public health. Horses were bolt for water when thirsty, and sometimes people were killed. Indeed. And I bet everyone riding the horse was like riding along going, I'm the best at riding horses. Everybody else who's riding a horse is doing it too slowly or too fast. They're either idiots or maniacs. I tell you, humans don't change much. Charlie Nelson, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, mate. Was messaging a super chat just as you did. Oh, sorry. Did I get another one? I must have missed it. I thought I mentioned Charlie. So we had super chats tonight from, let's have a look. We had Umka from Charlie, another one from Umka. We had Alex Morgan, and we've had Andy McAvoy. And Guys, if it wasn't for my lovely super chatters, then I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to do this show because I can only do it because of the sponsorship and support that I get from you, the people watching it. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna try and get up my what do I need to do here? I need to just get my usual links that I put on at the end of each live episode of my usual nonsense. I realized that my file is still called Hughes Round, and I changed the name of the show ages ago. Anyway, so there we go. I can put that in there. Austria is beautiful. I love mountains. Yes, Gaz, I'm with you, fellow Scouser. Yeah, Austria is a beautiful country. So if I can just sign off by saying, there's a few things at the moment that Austria needs to work through. It does have a lot of people seemingly quite on the right side, or should I say the wrong side of the political spectrum, in positions of power. Hopefully they are tempered by the fact that Austria is a proportional representational country. And there are ghosts of the past that I feel like Austria still needs to reckon with. But I think that about my country as well. So I'm not singling Austria out in that respect. I know there's other countries that need to do exactly the same thing. You ain't got an empire anymore. We ain't got an empire no more. Let's call the whole thing off. Anyway, so, Ken, thank you. £5 super chat from Ken. That's really good of you. I've just dropped in my links. If you could possibly subscribe to my channel, I promise not to hassle you too much. But subscribers do make a difference to the algorithm. If you are subscribed to me and you're subscribed to someone doing something similar to me, then my videos will come up as suggested videos when other people are watching their videos, and it will draw more people to this channel. And they might like it. They might not like it. Who cares? But I mean, the point is, more people coming over here is good for me, and eventually it's good for you, because it means that I will be able to continue doing this, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you do want to patronize me, and that's always welcome, head over to my Patreon account, which is patreon.com/thatgingerscouser, and the link is there in the notes. So big thanks to Ken M and all my super chatters tonight. Thanks to everyone for watching. Andy McAvoy is saying, are you familiar with the town of St. Pölten, just outside of Vienna? Mainly stayed there, but Vienna obviously, and then mainly out to eat in the mountains. Superbly beautiful country. It is a beautiful country. It really is. And so, yeah, like I say, it's still got a little bit of work to do when it comes to the politics. But let's leave politics aside for the moment. If you want to go somewhere for a city break, or just somewhere you can go for a couple of weeks, well, maybe a couple of months, and just enjoy the scenery and the beauty of nature, Austria is a really, really good choice. It's not very far away, and the people there are very friendly, and in general, and people generally speak English, which makes things a little bit easier for us lazy travellers who can't be arsed learning German. Although I do believe they've got, 4 or 5 different genders in German. So, God, I can barely keep up in Spanish or French, never mind with just like my Lees and Lars. Visit Burgenland next time. No mountains, but a lake. Yay, a little alpine lake. A lovely little town with a lake nearby to chill out. And festivals, pre-COVID times anyway. Well, yeah, hopefully things will go back to some semblance of normality pretty soon. But until then, I will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, at 10 o'clock, where I'll be talking about my 11th country of my A to Z of all the countries in the world in alphabetical order. And that is my favorite name for a country, actually. It's kind of like my joint first with Djibouti, but it is Azerbaijan, which sounds like something you might say after doing a magic trick. You know, like you pull out your card and you go, is this your card? And you go, yeah. And you go, Azerbaijan. So yeah, tune in for that next Thursday at 10 o'clock. I'll be back for Brexit Reality tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So join me for that if you fancy it. And until then, I will say fair winds and following seas.